Thank you, Paul. And look, thanks very much to Share Cafe for the opportunity to present at their Hidden Gems webinar. First of all, I just go through the normal forward-looking statements and disclaimer as required. And then perhaps I'll just jump straight into it if I can, Paul. And that's in regard to our major gold assets in the Pilbara and Victoria. In the Ashburton, which is in the Pilbara area, just south of Tom Price, we have the Ashburton Gold Project, which is quite a substantial project of about 1.4 million ounces at 2.8 grams a tonne. We've recently done a new resource estimate for that, and the grade's gone up, and most of the gold now is contained within one deposit. Then further in the Pilbara, we've got what we call the Melina West Gold Project, which is a long strike from De Grey's Hemi discovery, and we find this to be a very prospective project. Our last drilling program there, we had an intersection, last hole, 1 metre at 10 grams, which has given us a lot of confidence to go back. In addition, we've got our Victorian gold projects, with Castlemaine, also South Muckleford and Tarnagulla. But also we've recently acquired what we call the Mount Piper Gold Project, which is located between Fosterville, Costerfield and Sunday Creek. This is a very exciting project for us, and it really has consolidated our position in Victorian Goldfields. So our strategy is, as a gold company, is to acquire and discover gold projects that can actually add true shareholder value. But it's interesting, to create shareholder value, we have to look at the value of all our assets. And that's led to our most recent announcement, which is that we're spinning out our lithium assets into a new vehicle called Kelly Metals. And as you can see on the next slide, what we've done is that Kalamazoo, in conjunction with a Canadian gold company called Victorian Resources, are vending in our lithium assets into a new ASX company, which is going to be listed in about September, and it's known as Kelly Metals. As some background to Karora actually owns the Higginsville Gold Project, which is just south of Kalgoorlie, quite a substantial project, producing around about 170,000 ounces of gold a year. But importantly, it's a very large landholding of about 1,600 square kilometres, and it's surrounded by a number of major lithium mines, which I'll give some more detail later, but also some lithium deposits. So it's a very hot area. So in conjunction with Kalamazoo's Pilbara ground, and also some ground we've got in the Lachlan Fold Belt in Victoria and New South Wales, we're putting together what we consider to be an unrivaled exploration company for lithium, about 3,800 square kilometres. The interest has been very strong since we announced this on the ASX last week. We're going to do a small raise to start with, probably $10 to $12 million, listing in September, as I mentioned. And pre-capital raise, Karora will own about 45%, but Kalamazoo 55%. But importantly for our shareholders, and again, it's all about creating value for our shareholders, we're going to distribute 25% of the shares that Kalamazoo owns in Kelly Metals at IPO. We're going to distribute that to our shareholders. So in effect, our shareholders are getting a dividend straight up. So we think that will add tremendous value to all our shareholders going forward. So now I'll go into a bit more detail if I can. First of all, just give you a corporate overview. Kalamazoo's got a very tight shareholding. Top 5 shareholders control 50% of the company, and the top 20 about 62 or 63%. Current market cap, as Paul mentioned, of about $21 million, but very tightly held. Share price has been, it's been pretty consistent over the last 12 months, but as we all know, even though with the gold price of $3,000 Aussie, all the goldies have actually been, share price have taken a bit of a hit over the last 12 months. And that's, again, one of the reasons why we decided to spin out our lithium assets into Kelly Metals. So now I'll perhaps just give you some detail as those assets. In the Pilbara, we've got the Ashburton Gold Project. As I mentioned, we've just recently done a resource statement there. The grade has increased by 10%. More importantly, the indicated resource has gone up, and as well, the grade's gone up, and we're now seeing most of it in just one deposit, which is Mount Olympus. So we're doing scoping studies in regard to this project to see where we take it in regard to development. But what's interesting for us is the grade, and gold is always all about grade. And if you look at our peers in the area, which is obviously the very large De Grey project, or Hemi, it's 1.2 grams a tonne. Calidus's Warrawoona project, 1.2 grams. Capricorn's Karlawinda project, a great project near Newman, it's 0.8 grams a tonne. Whereas compare that to our 2.8 grams a tonne across the entire project, And we think this gives a great opportunity for us to take to the next stage in regard to development. So, we're very confident that we're going to take this project further down the track over the next 12 to 18 months. Then, if I can, I'll just talk about Kali Metals. And as Paul mentioned, there's a bit of an EV focus on this. Aurora are vending in their Higginsville lithium project. It's surrounded by major lithium projects. We've got Mount Marion to the north, Bald Hill to the east, Buldonia to the south, and Pioneer to the west. And on our ground, or the ground that's going to be going to Kali, very prospective. And the thing that perhaps sticks out most to me is you look at the historical drill hole database. There are more than 600 pegmatites of more than 10 metres in length down hole that have yet to be analysed for lithium associated data. So we think this gives us an enormous opportunity to actually add value. Then if we go to our next project, on the next slide, you'll see Kalamazoo's vending in our Pilbara ground. And this is in joint venture with SQM, which is the world's second largest lithium producer. So this is a very prospective area. We've been doing drilling there. We're continuing to drill. So again, surrounded by some great lithium projects, being Pilbara and also Wodgina. So we think there's great value in this project going forward. So this is an important asset that we think needs more attention. And then, as Paul mentioned, we're also in the Lachlan Fold. And on the next slide, you'll see we have two projects there. In Victoria, we've got what they call the Tallangatta lithium project, and then further to north, the Jingellic lithium project. Now, these areas are a very prospective geology in what they call the Lachlan Fold Belt. Interestingly, significant tin and tantalum historical workings in this area. It's got the same geological features as a project known, the Dorchap lithium project to the south. So even though it's very greenfields, we think there's great potential in this area. So combine these three project areas, being the Lachlan Fold Belt, the Pilbara, but also the Higginsville, 3,800 square kilometres. So we think Kali Metals is going to have a significant future going forward. Then just quickly, I'll touch upon our central Victorian Goldfields projects. We've got a number of projects here, as I mentioned, Castlemaine, South Muckleford, Tarnagulla and Myrtle Creek. We've been drilling on these projects over the last couple of years. Victoria is going through a renaissance over the last couple of years because of the Fosterville gold mine, the world's richest gold mine, which is just to the north of our project areas. So we've been drilling there over the last couple of years, and we think that there's great potential still in these areas. Castlemaine was one of the richest goldfields, not just in Australia, but in the world. And there's more than 6 million ounces came out of there at a very high grade, average grade of about 15 grams a tonne. So we think great potential there. Then if you look also in the Melbourne zone, that's where we picked up our new project, which you'll see on the slide on the next page. You'll see a map there, and that's the Mount Piper Gold project. A very significant land holding, 1,500 square kilometres. Prime location, Fosterville to the north west, Costerfield on our northern border, and then we've got Sunday Creek, which has had some very significant drill intersections to the south. This area, different type of what we're seeing in the central goldfields. This is more a epizonal high-grade gold antimony deposit, and so we're looking to get drilling there, over the next probably 12 months. Recently granted and awarded, but we think great potential there. So I guess then, if you look, perhaps just as a summary for Kalamazoo, and happy to take some questions after this, we've got major gold assets in two of the most highly rated gold provinces in the world today. And that's the Ashburton or the Pilbara, where we've expanded our resource with a high grade to 2.8 grams a tonne. And in Victoria, we've been consolidating some significant projects over the last 3 or 4 years in one of the hottest areas because of the Fosterville gold project. We've now got a significant land holding and we're looking to go forward. But importantly for our shareholders, we've got our upcoming IPO of Kali Metals. And we're giving, again, value back to our shareholders by giving an in-specie distribution to our shareholders, but importantly also giving them a priority to actually invest in the IPO when it happens in December. So over the last 12 months, we've been building on past work, we've been doing exploration programs, and we continue to add value to our shareholders. So Paul, in summary, I guess that's an overview of Kalamazoo, and happy to open it up to any Q&A that your audience might want.
Thanks, Luke. I did have a few questions, but you were pretty thorough in an answering most of them. But I got a few from myself. Sure. We have a lot of companies coming on the Hidden Gems webinar, and companies that have multiple assets. And one of the questions we always get is, are you focusing on your gold asset, your nickel asset, your zinc asset? You obviously have kind of answered that question. Obviously, you decided to spin out the lithium asset into another vehicle, which I think is really kind of interesting. So you still remain the interest, but obviously, you chose to focus on your gold projects. Now the gold space is really starting to heat up. The gold price has obviously had a pretty decent rise over the last few months. It's been well documented that obviously there's been a lot of sovereign funds buying in gold. And we've also seen a bit of M&A activity going in at the big end of town. Do you think that's going to feed down to some of the smaller companies? Obviously the Newcrest-Newmont merger was obviously a big deal. Do you think that the big guys are going to come down the food chain and look at some of the smaller gold assets, and if the price remains where it is?
Yeah, Paul, look, that's been the practice in the past. Usually when we see M&A activity, it starts at the top and then works its way down. And it's a clamour for good ground. I guess the other thing too is that even though the gold price is high and costs have been high as well, it's getting harder and harder to actually get projects up, and it's taking longer. So therefore, one would think that commodity prices will remain elevated, and that, of course, there's a political ramifications to that globally as well. So I think commodities are the place to be, and I guess from Kalamazoo's point of view, being in gold and being in lithium, I think is the right spread. But to your question just before about, are we a gold company or a lithium company? The view of our board is that we think the sum of the parts are worth more than the whole of the sum at the moment. And that's why we've taken this approach. However, having said that, I'd like to claim credit and say that, we found lithium, but in effect, lithium found us. We had projects up in the Pilbara that by doing some more exploration, we found lithium there. So therefore, we've got to add value. And the best way to do that is raise some more money and give Kelly Metals its own life.
Well, it's very interesting. And just one more question with regards to the gold projects. How are you funded? What's your sort of current cash position to help develop those gold projects?
Yeah, so we've got about $2 million cash, and we've got stock in as well in the bank. All our lithium exploration to date is actually being sole funded by SQM, so that's not costing us anything, and we're actually managing it. So, our money is actually focused on our gold. But look, we're obviously talking to a number of parties in regard to the Ashburton Gold Project. Nothing of substance at this point in time, but we're looking to advance the Ashburton. Look, there's a lot of interest in it. 1.4 million ounces is a substantial asset, and so we'll look at opportunities to see how we take that forward.
That's great. Well, that's all we've got time for today. Luke, really appreciate you taking time to present today, and we'll be following the Kalamazoo story very, very closely. So many thanks.
Thanks, Paul.